we're live.
Okay, we're going to install the rings on the last piston here. Look for the gap in the oil ring spring. Spread it apart slightly. Back together. I hold that position. I turn this over. I always put that at the back. I put the gap in the oil ring opposite where that spring is. No reason other than that's just the way I've always done it.
And John, we got 3 piston rings, right?
Yes, on this piston, it's a 3-ring piston.
Explain what each one's for.
This one is the oil control ring. This one prevents oil from coming up the bore and getting in the combustion chamber and burning and smoking, which is one of the main problems I'm having right now with this car. And the upper 2 are compression rings, but they're made of different material. It's a science, and I'm not that much into it to understand the science, but the middle ring has a little tiny ridge on the bottom of the outside, and I think it's got something to do with the compression forcing the ring out or something like that. I'm just not 100% sure, so I don't want to say anything that might not be true.
Okay.
There's tools to do this, but I don't have one, so I don't do it often enough probably to justify buying the tool. So the top one is the hardest one. It's made of, I think it's made of a different material to the other 2, and it is very stiff. But it goes down, and that's it. Okay, all 3 rings are on there. When I go to put them in, I'll put one gap in line with the wrist pin. Bottom gap of the oil ring, I'll put the center gap opposite that, and the 3rd gap opposite that one. Okay, these are pretty much all assembled and ready to go in. So if you give me a minute, I need to go get the piston ring compressor and adjust the block because it has to be turned over.
Okay.
So we're off.
Go.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start installing the pistons. First we'll oil up the rings. Okay, we'll set the gaps. Let me check which way these go. Let's see, okay. On these, the rods are offset. If you look at it, the rod comes down like that, and it's just offset to the back side, and so you have to make sure you put it in that way. I know this is number 1 because I dimpled it, the single dimple there, so I know this is number 1, and I just have to see which way, and it is biased that way. So I can put this, actually, let me put some bearing lube on here.
That bias to the offset is to the back of the engine or the front?
Well, if you look down the end of the bore, you'll actually see the crank pin is one way or the other.
Okay. So you can't put it in the wrong way?
No, you could. But you wouldn't line the bolts up.
Gotcha.
Okay, so got oil in the bearing,
And
oil on the ring.
As far as bolts, you got protectors on the threads there?
I have protectors so it'll go around the crank journal without any damage.
Okay.
And we set that in there and put it about halfway down. I say we put it in there, we put it about halfway down, and there we are. Okay, that should, okay. Make sure the ring gaps are where they're supposed to be. Okay, at this point, ring compressor. I lifted it up about ½ an inch or so that I know the rings are not going to be trapped under the edge of the compressor or anything. And I snug it all down. Okay, everything's tight. I'll get my hammer. Excuse me. Tap the tool so the tool seats up against the block. I make sure that the rings, or the studs are on both sides of the crankshaft. Actually, I can turn the crankshaft down like that. And then,
Hold on just a second.
all right,
You do that.
they went,
Okay, go ahead.
and I tapped. Tapped it in just very lightly until it goes through. You want to make sure all the rings, that this is flush. You don't want to get a ring trapped between this and the block because you can break the ring real easy. So, set that there. Push it in the rest of the way. All right, once it's in, you pull those off. Should be number one. You have to make sure. Number one dimple. Wrong loop, sorry. Now, I'm gonna do the Plastigauge on the last one rather than the first one. And the reason I like to do it that way is because it's so easy to turn the crankshaft and smear the Plastigauge with only like the first bearing on it. It's very difficult to torque the bearing down. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. I will do the last one and we'll see that done. But having that being last, you'll have 3 other pistons and rods holding the crank in position, so it makes it steadier.
Okay.
Okay. Again, make sure the tangs go together and they're both down. Smallest amount.
What are these torqued down to?
These torque down to 45 Newton meters.
There's no washer?
No. Earlier cars did have a washer, but they found out that the washer was like a lock washer, and it was made of softer material. Well, what would happen is it'd take a beating, and it would compress and leave a gap, and so they did away with it. Okay. Let's see.
One down, 3 to go.
I'm going to make sure this one spins first. Okay. I can do with just one piston in there, I can spin this with one hand, but each one is going to add
More drag.
more
to it.
friction, more drag. Yes, exactly. And that's going to make it difficult. So we will go ahead and do number 2. I've oiled the bores. Thank you. Oil in the rings. I rotate and make sure that the oil gets inside the grooves, around everywhere. Okay, now look down here and I can see the offset is to the right. Also, I know from the first one that the dimples were down, and they are on this one. Okay, let me go here. Okay. Dimples are down. This in here. I'll set the gaps here in just a second. Okay. Oil gap. Compression gap. Another compression gap. Okay. Tracking in the rings, push it down flush, ratchet it on, and it starts getting kind of a little bit tight. I'm going to take and tap it. As you see, this tool starts to come unwound a little bit, and I want it all flush against the block. So make sure it's tapped on there like that. Okay, let's ratchet it down as far as it can go. The studs are lined up. Okay. Number 2 there, please. Oops.
John, will you change the engine oil after this thing runs so many hours?
Yes.
Because
usually around 300 miles.
Okay. And that's because, what, that grease contaminates the oil? Or?
Well, it's that, and it doesn't matter how clean you get the engine when you get done. There's always little bits of metal and stuff trapped inside, and the oil, the object of the oil is to carry those bits of trash away. So you change that 300 miles. I'll torque the head, adjust the valves at the same time.
Okay. A little bit of Loctite.
Just a little.
Did you leak this?
Pardon me?
Did you leak that piece?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Actually, looks like it's...
Okay. Make sure it spins.
What kind of oil would you use for a break-in?
Break-in, I'll use probably Walmart 2050. Regular dinosaur oil, not the synthetic. I generally don't run synthetics in minis because they're kind of old school and you change the oil in a little more often. If they don't leak it all out first. Okay, let's do number 3.
I think Vince had a question about the bearings on those cranks
Okay.
with the tabs.
When you mention tang, what are you
Mhm.
talking about?
If you, right there, see that little,
That's the tang.
right, that's the tank.
Let me see if I can get a close up of that real quick here. Just a second. Just a little notch right there.
It's an anti-rotation.
All right. And it's got to be where in relation to?
Well, generally they line up, okay? In the sense that when you take the rod, the cap off the rod, they'll both be on the same side. And the same thing with the main bearings, they're going to be on the same side. But the object of them is to prevent the shell from rotating with the crankshaft.
Gotcha.
And because it happened, even with the tang there, that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
If the bearing gets seized to the crankshaft, you just rip that tang off and they'll start spinning, and that's not good.
So the tang is basically like a stop to keep the bearing from
Yes.
sliding. Okay.
And it centers it. I mean, it serves several purposes,
Right.
but I think the main one is the anti-rotation.
Okay.
Okay. All right. This one offset to the back, and the tang, or the dots are down, as is the tang. Okay. Oil ring aligned. Up or no compression. All the oil rings are lined up. The bearing's good. Okay. Always triple check the piston ring compressor is flush as it can get with the top of the block. You don't want to crack a piston ring. You can get a new one if you do, but it's not cheap. Got to buy the whole set. Okay, make sure that's lined up. Looks good. All right. Something didn't feel right there, and I can't tell what. Ah, that's what it is. Okay, I see. Just touching the crankshaft. We'll start over here. Okay. The rod was just turned just slightly, and it was hitting the crankshaft there. So it's flush. Let me make sure this is